Here's what studies show about the power of repetition. Welcome to Critical Thinking Scan, where we look at how you can think about any faith-challenging message and arrive at a biblical, logical conclusion yourself. I'm Patricia Engler, and today I'm going to share some research that blew me away when I read it about why and when repeated messages sound true. In episode 28, I mentioned that there's a type of cognitive bias or faulty thinking pattern called the illusionary truth effect, when a message sounds true because it's repeated often. This bias stems from two related heuristics, or mental shortcuts the brain uses to automatically make decisions, called the recognition heuristic and the fluency heuristic. The recognition heuristic is our tendency to make snap decisions about something based on whether we recognize it, with more familiar objects typically seeming more likable and trustworthy. Meanwhile, the fluency heuristic is our tendency to make snap decisions based on how quickly our brain can process the relevant information. Messages we've heard before are easier to process, and so are messages that simply make sense. Messages that make sense are often true, so the brain automatically associates processing ease or fluency with truth. For instance, studies have found that people are more likely to rate messages as true when they're written in easy-to-read font colors. Fluency also helps explain why messages that are clearly and eloquently communicated can sound more true, because they're easier to understand. For instance, as a student, I noticed that some of my evolutionary professors communicated so eloquently that almost whatever they said sounded true, even though how a message is expressed is irrelevant to whether it's true. And that highlights the trouble with relying on fluency. Messages that are easy to process aren't always logical. Repeating a lie can make it easier for our brains to understand, but repetition can't make lies more true. So, saying a message is true because it's repeated often is a fallacy called appeal to repetition or ad nauseum. Yet, however, logically, repetition remains an effective propaganda technique because the illusionary truth effect is so powerful, as multiple studies have shown. And it's especially powerful when a message gets repeated by different sources. On the bright side, though, some research suggests that the illusionary truth effect isn't as strong if people know the message source is unreliable. Unfortunately, though, the brain is more likely to remember a message's content than its source over time. So the researchers found that after 2 to 3 weeks, the illusionary truth effect reappeared as people forgot the message's source. Originally, most researchers also assumed that people would be less susceptible to the power of repetition if they already knew a repeated message was false. But in 2015, another study showed otherwise. Students read true or false statements, half of which they'd seen before, and ranked the statement's validity from definitely true to definitely false. Then the students answered questions revealing their prior knowledge about the information those statements covered. Results revealed that on average, students always gave the repeated lies a higher truth score than lies they'd never seen before, even when the prior knowledge test showed that the students knew those statements were false. After further study, the researchers concluded that students are more likely to rely on fluency first, above prior knowledge, when evaluating a message. Opposite of what most researchers once assumed then, students typically use their prior knowledge to evaluate messages only when relying on fluency and repetition isn't an option. But amazingly, a similar experiment in 2017 with both students and seniors above age 65 found that while repetition trumped knowledge in young adults, seniors relied on prior knowledge more and only used the fluency heuristic when they didn't already know whether a message was true. The researchers suggested that this is because seniors have had more time to become familiar with what they know, making their knowledge easier to retrieve. That's just one more example of why Christian youth need connections with older mentors, not despite the fact that older adults may have a different way of thinking, but precisely because of it. Likewise, if students regularly fill their minds with God's Word, which they know is true, they'll be more ready to use that truth to combat the repeated unbiblical messages they hear at university, like evolutionary human origins. For more on how to think critically about any faith-challenging message, you can access my other CT Scan episodes packed with tactics, tips, and tools that helped me as a Christian student at secular university. Thank you for watching. Hey, it's Patricia. Just wanted to let you know that if you like these videos, a free, easy way to help Answers in Genesis Canada produce more content and equip more people to defend their faith is to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, click the bell, and of course share these resources. I know you might hear that kind of thing a lot, but the reason these actions are so important is they inform social media algorithms to help these videos reach more people who can benefit from them. And that's especially helpful because advertising is super expensive. But this way, even media platforms which are often unfriendly towards biblical content become tools to promote gospel outreach for free. And if you're on board to share this message of biblical authority and want to give, you can also make a one-time donation or become a monthly supporter by clicking the link below. Thank you so much.